Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. My name is Anna, and I am so happy you are here with us today. This podcast is made for beginner English learners, and every episode is simple, friendly, and very useful. Today, we have a really exciting and practical topic. We are going to talk about how to study smart, not hard. Many people spend hours and hours studying, but do not see good results. The problem is often not how much they study, but how they study. I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Mark. Mark, say hello and tell us, were you a smart studier when you were at school?
Hello. Thank you, Anna. Hi to all our wonderful listeners. Was I a smart studier at school? Honestly, no, not at first. I used to sit at my desk for many hours, rereading the same pages over and over, and wondering why I could not remember anything. It was frustrating and exhausting. But over time, I discovered that there are much smarter and more effective ways to study. Today, Anna and I are going to share the best techniques, strategies, and habits that science has proven actually work. By the end of this episode, you will know exactly how to get better results in less time. Let's get started.
Let's start with some important vocabulary for today's topic. To study smart means to use effective, efficient methods that produce the best results in the least amount of time. To study hard simply means to spend a lot of time and effort studying, often without a clear strategy. These are very different things. Other important words: technique, a specific method or way of doing something; strategy, a plan for achieving a goal; retention, the ability to remember and keep information in your memory; and active learning, engaging deeply with material rather than passively reading it; and to cram, to try to learn a large amount of information very quickly just before an exam.
Studying hard without smart strategies is ineffective for one main reason. The human brain does not store information simply because you look at it for a long time. The brain stores information that is meaningful, repeated in smart ways, connected to what it already knows, and retrieved actively. Simply rereading your notes or textbook is one of the least effective study methods science has identified, but it is what most students naturally do. The phrase, "the illusion of knowing," describes this perfectly. When you reread something, it feels familiar, so you think you know it. But familiarity is not the same as real learning. Real learning means you can recall and use information without looking at it.
The illusion of knowing. What a powerful and important concept. Now, let's talk about the first smart study strategy: active recall. Active recall means testing yourself on material instead of just reading it. Instead of looking at your notes and thinking, "Yes, I know this," you close your notes and try to remember the information from memory. You ask yourself questions. What are the main points of this topic? What did I just read? Can I explain this in my own words without looking? This forces your brain to work hard to retrieve the information, which strengthens the memory much more than passive rereading. A simple tool for active recall is flashcards.
Active recall is one of the most powerful study techniques ever researched. Here's why it works so well. Every time you try to retrieve a piece of information from memory, even if you struggle and cannot remember it perfectly, your brain strengthens the connection to that information. The struggle to remember is not a sign that you are failing. It is actually the learning happening. Psychologists call this the testing effect, or retrieval practice effect. The simple act of testing yourself on material dramatically improves how well you remember it long term, compared to rereading the same material. Practical ways to use active recall: close your book and write everything you remember.
Teaching the material to an imaginary student. I love that idea. Now, let's talk about the second powerful strategy: spaced repetition. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at gradually increasing intervals over time, rather than studying everything on the same day. For example, you learn something new today, you review it tomorrow, then 3 days later, then a week later, then a month later. Each time you review, the memory gets stronger and lasts longer. This matches the natural way human memory works. Our memories fade over time. Scientists call this the forgetting curve. But each time you review information just before you're about to forget it, the forgetting curve resets and becomes flatter.
Spaced repetition is beautifully simple once you understand it. Imagine you're building a wall with bricks. If you lay all the bricks in one day and never come back, the wall might collapse. But if you add bricks regularly over many days, checking that each layer is solid before adding the next, the wall becomes strong and permanent. Memory works the same way. Trying to learn everything about a topic in one long session, called massed practice or cramming, creates weak temporary memories. Reviewing the same material spread over multiple sessions creates strong, lasting memories. The brilliant thing is, spaced repetition actually requires less total study time than cramming to achieve better long-term results.
What a perfect analogy, building a wall of knowledge brick by brick. Now let's talk about the third strategy, the Pomodoro technique, because this one is specifically about how to manage your study time. The Pomodoro technique was created by Francesco Cirillo in the 1980s. It is very simple. You work with complete focus for 25 minutes. This is called one Pomodoro, the Italian word for tomato, because Cirillo used a tomato-shaped kitchen timer. After 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break. After completing 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. This method works because it creates focused work blocks, prevents mental fatigue, and makes large tasks feel manageable.
Yes, the Pomodoro technique has been genuinely transformative for my productivity. Before I discovered it, I would sit at my desk for 2 or 3 hours feeling increasingly tired, distracted, and unproductive. Now I work in focused 25-minute blocks, and the difference is remarkable. The fixed time limit creates a sense of urgency. You know you only have 25 minutes, so you focus immediately without procrastinating. The regular breaks prevent mental fatigue and keep your concentration fresh across a longer period. And seeing a completed list of Pomodoros at the end of a study session gives a satisfying sense of accomplishment.
Even a struggling student can manage 25 minutes, and that is exactly how to start. Now let's talk about the fourth SMART strategy, interleaving. Interleaving means mixing different subjects or types of problems within a single study session, rather than studying one subject completely before moving to the next. For example, instead of spending 1 hour only on mathematics, you might do 20 minutes of mathematics, then 20 minutes of history, then 20 minutes of biology. This feels less comfortable than studying one subject at a time, but research shows it actually produces much better long-term learning. The slight difficulty and confusion you feel when switching between topics forces your brain to work harder and make connections.
Interleaving works better because of something called desirable difficulty. When studying feels slightly hard and uncomfortable, your brain is actually working more deeply with the material. Studying one subject in one big block feels comfortable and efficient, but it creates an illusion of mastery. You were just warming up to the material. When you switch subjects, you have to start fresh, re-engage your brain, and actively recall what you were working on when you return. This active re-engagement is the real learning happening. Research studies comparing blocked practice, one subject at a time, with interleaved practice consistently find that interleaved learners perform significantly better on tests, even though they often feel less confident during studying.
Desirable difficulty. What a wonderful concept. The slight discomfort is actually the learning. Now let's talk about the environment, because where and how you study has a significant impact on the quality and effectiveness of your studying. A good study environment has several key features. It is free from distractions, especially your phone and social media. It is comfortable, but not too comfortable. Studying in bed, for example, makes many people sleepy. It has good lighting, natural light is best, it is quiet or has only non-distracting background sound, and it is associated in your mind with studying. If you always study at the same desk, your brain begins to automatically shift into.
My ideal study environment has a few non-negotiables. First, my phone is in another room or on airplane mode, completely out of sight. Notifications are the #1 enemy of focused study. Research shows that even having your phone visible on your desk, even face down, reduces your cognitive capacity. Just seeing it makes you think about it. Second, I sit at a proper desk with good lighting, not on a sofa or in bed. Third, I use noise-canceling headphones, either with silence or instrumental music without lyrics. Lyrics are very distracting when reading or thinking. Fourth, I keep my desk clear of unnecessary objects. Clutter creates mental noise.
A prepared environment is a productive environment. I love that. Now let's talk about something many students do wrong: highlighting and underlining. Many students use colored highlighters on their textbooks and feel very productive while doing it. The page looks neat and colorful, and it feels like studying. But research consistently shows that highlighting and underlining are among the least effective study techniques available. Why? Because they are passive. You are just marking text, not deeply engaging with it. And because students tend to highlight too much, which does not help them identify the most important information. Marking your textbook in yellow does not make your brain remember it better.
Instead of highlighting, students should annotate and engage actively. Here is what effective reading looks like. As you read, ask yourself questions. Why is this important? How does this connect to what I already know? Can I think of an example? Write these thoughts in the margins. This is called annotation. Summarize each section in your own words in the margin or in a separate notebook. This forces active processing. Create a simple outline of the main points without looking at the text. And after finishing a section, close the book and try to write everything you remember. Then check what you missed. These active reading strategies produce dramatically better retention than any amount of highlighting.
Annotation and summarizing in your own words, so much more powerful than highlighting. Now let's talk about the importance of sleep for learning, because many students make the serious mistake of staying up very late to study more, but this is counterproductive. During sleep, especially during the deep sleep and REM stages, your brain actively consolidates memories. It sorts, organizes, and strengthens everything you learned during the day, moving information from short-term to long-term memory. If you deprive yourself of sleep to study more, you are actually undermining the very process that makes your studying effective. The phrase "sleep on it" has real scientific meaning. Sleeping after learning significantly improves how well you remember.
Sleep is possibly the single most important study tool that almost no student talks about. Here is what happens neurologically. During deep sleep, your brain replays and strengthens the neural pathways formed during the day's learning. During REM sleep, your brain makes creative connections between new information and things you already know. This is why you sometimes wake up with a new understanding of something you were confused about the day before. Studies show that sleeping between a learning session and a test dramatically improves test performance compared to staying awake from more study time. The practical advice? Do your studying, then sleep. Do not cram at the expense of sleep.
Sleep is studying. Every student needs to hear that. Now let's talk about exercise and its relationship to learning, because this surprises many people. Physical exercise is not just good for your body, it is directly beneficial for your brain and your ability to learn. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, promotes the growth of new brain cells, and releases chemicals like BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which scientists sometimes call miracle grow for the brain because it helps neurons connect and memories form. Studies consistently show that students who exercise regularly have better memory, better concentration, and better academic performance than those who do not.
The difference in my mental performance after exercise is remarkable. On days when I go for a morning run or do even a short workout before studying, my concentration is sharper, my thinking is clearer, and I learn new information much more quickly. On days when I sit at my desk all day without moving, my mind feels foggy and slow by the afternoon. The research strongly supports this personal experience. A study from Harvard found that aerobic exercise, activities that raise your heart rate, actually causes new brain cells to grow in the hippocampus, the area of the brain most responsible for learning and memory.
Move your body to improve your mind. Such a simple and powerful message. Now let's talk about something very important for all learners, the importance of breaks. Many students feel guilty about taking breaks. They think every minute not studying is a minute wasted. But this is wrong. Regular, planned breaks are essential for effective studying. Your brain cannot maintain deep focus indefinitely. After a period of concentrated work, typically 20 to 45 minutes, the quality of your attention decreases significantly. Working through this fatigue does not produce more learning, it produces less. Planned breaks allow your brain to consolidate recent learning, reset your attention, and approach the next session with fresh focus.
Effective study breaks are those that genuinely rest your brain, not those that simply replace one screen with another. Here is what I recommend. Stand up and move. Even walking to the kitchen and back gets blood flowing. Go outside briefly if possible. Fresh air and natural light are genuinely restorative for mental energy. Do a few minutes of gentle stretching. Your body gets stiff from sitting. Have a healthy snack and drink water. Hydration significantly affects cognitive performance. Or simply sit quietly for a few minutes without any screens. What I do not recommend for breaks: checking social media, watching videos, or playing phone games.
A real break means stepping away from all screens. So important and so often ignored. Now let's talk about goal setting for studying, because studying without a clear goal is like driving without a destination. Effective study goals are specific and measurable. Not, I will study English today, but I will learn and review 20 new English vocabulary words with flashcards for 30 minutes today. Not, I will study for my exam, but I will complete and self-test on chapters 3 and 4 today. When your study goal is specific, you know exactly when you have achieved it. This creates motivation, focus, and a satisfying sense of completion when you finish.
Setting effective study goals has transformed my productivity. Here's my simple system. The night before, I decide specifically what I want to accomplish the next day. Not what I want to go over, but what I want to be able to do by the end of the session. For example, by the end of this session, I will be able to recall all 50 vocabulary words without looking at my notes. Or I will complete 10 practice problems and check my answers. Notice that the goal describes a result, something I can verify, not just an activity. I also estimate how long each task will take and plan my sessions accordingly.
Specific outcomes make studying more effective and more satisfying. Perfectly said. Now, let's talk about the myth of multitasking, because many students believe they can study effectively while also doing other things, watching television, texting friends, or listening to music with lyrics. But research is very clear. Multitasking, truly doing two mentally demanding things simultaneously, is not possible for the human brain. What we call multitasking is actually task switching, rapidly moving attention between tasks. And every time you switch, there is a cost, called switching cost, where your attention takes time to fully engage with the new task. This makes every individual task slower and less accurate.
The impact of distractions during studying is much greater than most people realize. Research by Gloria Mark at the University of California found that after being interrupted, even briefly, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully return to the original task. So one quick check of your phone does not cost you 30 seconds. It potentially costs you more than 20 minutes of full concentration. This means that students who study for 2 hours with frequent phone checks may achieve far less deep learning than students who study with complete focus for just 45 minutes.
Protect your focus fiercely. It is your most precious resource. I want to write that on every student's desk. Now, let's talk about the importance of understanding rather than memorization. Many students try to memorize information without truly understanding it. This creates fragile knowledge. You might remember facts for an exam, but quickly forget them afterward, and you cannot apply them flexibly in new situations. True learning means understanding the underlying concepts, principles, and connections. When you understand something deeply, you can remember it more easily, apply it in different contexts, and transfer it to new situations. In English, I understand why this works, not just that it works. I can explain this in my own words.
Building understanding rather than memorizing is one of the most important learning principles. A powerful technique for this is called the Feynman technique, named after Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. It works in 4 steps. First, choose a concept you want to understand. Second, explain it as simply and clearly as possible, as if you were teaching a 10-year-old child. Use plain language, no jargon. Third, identify the gaps. Where did your explanation break down? Where did you struggle to explain clearly? Those are the areas you do not truly understand yet. Fourth, go back to your source material and fill those gaps, then repeat.
Simplicity is the sign of true understanding. That is such a powerful principle. Now, let's do a quick quiz for our listeners. I will describe a student's study behavior, and Mark will say whether this student is studying smart and suggest a better approach if needed. Ready? Situation 1. Mia has an exam in 3 days. She opens her textbook and spends 2 hours reading all her notes from the beginning, using a yellow highlighter to mark sentences she thinks are important. She reads everything twice and feels confident she knows it well. Listeners, is Mia studying smart? Think about what we have discussed today. Mark, what is your verdict, and what should Mia do instead?
Mia is unfortunately not studying smart. She is using 2 of the least effective study techniques, passive rereading and highlighting. Rereading creates the illusion of knowing. Because the material looks familiar, she feels confident, but this familiarity is not the same as real memory or understanding. And highlighting is passive. It does not make her brain work hard to remember anything. Here's what Mia should do instead. After one reading, she should close the book and write down everything she can remember. Active recall. She should use flashcards to test herself on key facts. She should spread her review over 3 days, 1 solid session today, a review tomorrow, and a final review.
Perfect advice for Mia. Now let's look at situation 2. Daniel studies for 30 minutes with complete focus. No phone, no music, at his desk. He uses flashcards to test himself on vocabulary. After 30 minutes, he takes a 10-minute walk outside, then he returns and studies a different subject for 25 minutes using the Pomodoro technique. In the evening, he reviews his earlier flashcards briefly and goes to bed at 10:30 to ensure 8 hours of sleep. Listeners, is Daniel studying smart? What is he doing well? I am very curious to hear Mark's analysis of Daniel's study session.
Daniel is studying brilliantly. Let me go through everything he's doing right. First, 30 minutes of complete distraction-free focus. This protects his concentration and ensures deep learning. Second, using flashcards for vocabulary. This is active recall, one of the best study techniques available. Third, a 10-minute walk for a break. This genuinely restores his brain and increases blood flow. Fourth, switching to a different subject. This is interleaving, which again, research produces better long-term retention. Fifth, a brief evening review of earlier flashcards. This is spaced repetition, consolidating his earlier learning. And sixth, getting 8 hours of sleep, allowing his brain to fully consolidate everything he learned during the day.
Daniel is my new study hero. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked, the physical act of writing by hand. In our digital world, many students take notes on laptops or tablets, but research suggests that handwriting notes, physically writing by hand, leads to better learning than typing. The reason is fascinating. When you type, you can transcribe information very quickly, which means you often write down words almost verbatim without deeply processing them. When you write by hand, the process is slower, which forces you to listen more carefully, select the most important information, and put it into your own words. This deeper processing during note-taking leads to better understanding and better retention.
I use both, but for different purposes. For learning new material and attending lectures or classes, I always prefer handwriting in a physical notebook. The slower pace forces me to process and summarize rather than transcribe. My handwritten notes are messier and shorter than typed notes, but they represent what I actually understood, not just what I heard. For organizing and reviewing information later, I sometimes transfer key points to a digital format, which is easier to search and reorganize. If you use a laptop for notes, a simple rule helps. Do not write full sentences. Force yourself to summarize in 4 or 5 words per point. This mimics the processing benefit of handwriting.
Engage your brain, not just your fingers. Such a clear and practical principle. Now let's talk about learning in different ways, what is called multimodal learning. Our brains process and remember information much better when we encounter it in multiple different formats. Reading about a topic is one way, watching a video explanation is another, drawing a diagram is another, explaining it aloud to someone is another, creating a mind map is another. Each different format activates different parts of your brain and creates more connections to the new information, making it easier to remember and apply. For language learners especially, combining reading, listening, speaking, and writing creates much stronger learning than any single method alone.
Multimodal learning is something I practice naturally now, though I did not always do it deliberately. When I'm learning something new, I try to encounter it in at least 3 different ways. First, I read about it from a textbook or article. Second, I find a video explanation. Watching and listening adds a visual and auditory dimension. Third, I write a summary in my own words. This activates writing and deepens processing. And sometimes I also draw a simple diagram or mind map connecting the key ideas visually. For language learning specifically, which is what many of our listeners are doing right now, this means reading English, listening to English, speaking English, and
Every episode of this podcast is already multimodal learning. I love that. You are already studying smart by listening to us. Now let's give our listeners a complete summary of all the smart study strategies we have covered today. Strategy 1. Use active recall. Test yourself instead of rereading. Strategy 2. Use spaced repetition. Review at increasing intervals over time. Strategy 3. Use the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes focused, 5 minutes break. Strategy 4. Try interleaving. Mix different subjects in one session. Strategy 5. Create a distraction-free study environment. Strategy 6. Annotate and summarize instead of highlighting. Strategy 7. Protect your sleep. It is essential for memory consolidation.
continuing the strategy list, Strategy 9 sets specific, measurable study goals for each session. Strategy 10, eliminate all distractions, protect your focus fiercely. Strategy 11, build understanding, not just memorization. Use the Feynman technique. Strategy 12, use multimodal learning. Read, watch, write, speak. Strategy 13, take handwritten notes to deepen processing. Strategy 14, never cram. Distributed practice always beats massed practice. Strategy 15, do practice tests and questions, the best exam preparation available. And Strategy 16, teach what you have learned to someone else, or to yourself out loud. If you can explain it clearly and simply, you truly know it.
16 smart study strategies. What an incredible toolkit. I feel like going back to school just listening to this episode. Let me give a final summary of today. We talked about the difference between studying smart and studying hard. We covered active recall, spaced repetition, the Pomodoro technique, and interleaving. We discussed creating a good study environment, the failure of highlighting, and the power of annotation. We talked about sleep, exercise, breaks, goal setting, and the dangers of multitasking. We explored understanding over memorization using the Feynman technique, multimodal learning, and handwritten notes. We did a quiz about Mia and Daniel, and we gave 16 complete study strategies.
Thank you so much, Anna. This was one of the most practically useful episodes we have ever made. And a huge thank you to every listener who joined us today. Remember, studying smart means using your time and energy in the most effective way possible so that you learn more, remember more, and enjoy the process more. Every single one of the strategies we shared today is backed by real scientific research. They work. Start with one small change. Maybe try active recall for just 15 minutes today instead of rereading your notes. Notice the difference. Then add another strategy next week. Small, consistent improvements compound into extraordinary results over time.